Hello, I'm Maurice Stewart. Welcome to another episode of Sky Viewers International Podcast. And I have a very special guest tonight, wherever you're looking from. He is Mr. John Reed, and he's located in Canada in an area called Halifax, Nova Scotia, actually in Eastern Canada. John is an astrophysicist. He is an amateur astronomer, and he is a distinguished astronomy author. John, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Maurice. It's great to be on the show. Yeah, and as you said, I'm an astronomer. I graduated in 2020 with a degree in astrophysics from St. Mary's here in Halifax. And for a living now, I run the Learn to Stargaze YouTube channel, and I write books about space, including the new one, 110 Things to See with a Telescope.
I was just going to ask you about that, right? You wrote an excellent book for amateur and professional astronomers. What is the name of the book? And number one, what's the name of the book? Number two, why did you select that name? And why did you write it?
Well, the book is 110 Things to See with a Telescope, the world's most famous stargazing list. And this is a book I had wanted to write for a long time. So my first book was 50 Things to See with a Telescope, and that was a surprising success. That book, I wrote it mainly for me so that I'd have a list of targets every time I went out, depending on the season. And I ended up posting it on Amazon, not thinking it would sell. And it helped thousands, literally thousands of people used it for preparing for their stargazing activities. And so the reason that this book is 110 Things to See with a Telescope, 110 is a very special number for astronomers because 110 is the number that Charles Messier essentially he came up with a list of objects in the sky that were not comets, and there were 110 of them.
Can I
And
just stop you one moment? Could
sure.
you just, for the purpose of our viewers who are not astronomers, who was Charles Messier?
Yeah, so Charles Messier lived about 200 years ago in Paris, France, and he was a comet hunter. And comet hunting was a great way to gain notoriety in the French community there. And so he had an observatory in Paris, and he was looking for comets. And ironically, he did not become famous for comets. He became famous for this list of fuzzy things in space that were not comets, so that people wouldn't get confused thinking that they were comets. And then as telescopes got larger and larger, as the last 2 centuries progressed, we now know that these are the galaxies, the globular clusters, the star clusters, the nebula, the planetary nebula that we see in our backyard telescopes.
Now, there are several other books on the Messier list out there. What makes your book that special?
Yeah, so there are a lot of books on this list of 110 objects. What makes this book special compared to the other books, a lot of the other books are details about the Messier objects. What's unique about this book is it's very specifically tailored to how to see them with a telescope. And there's 3 things that we do differently than the other books. One, every page has a picture of that Messier object. And what I've done is I used the telescopes. So I used one in St. Mary's and one at Arizona. And then I edited the picture to show what it would look like to your eye, because cameras work quite a bit differently than the human eye. And so I adjusted sort of the contrast so that it looks like it would if you're using, a medium to large telescope from a dark sky. So that's number one. Number two, on every page of the book and for every target, there is a place
Hold it up. Let's see,
I'm
John.
gonna hold it up.
Let's see. Can
So
we
there is
see?
a place to sketch the target here, and then to log your observations. And so what this does is it allows you as an observer to, one, document your progress, but two, you can earn certificates for your observation. So if you see every object in this book, all 110 objects, and you record your observation using this little dialog box here, the Royal Astronomical Society will send you a certificate and a pin for your observation. And of course, that assumes you're a member of the Royal Astronomical Society of Canada. And the same thing goes for the United States. If you're in the United States, you might be a member of the Astronomical League, and then they have a certificate program there as well, in which you only need to observe 70 targets to get your certificate. And it doesn't matter where you are in the world. You can join one of these two organizations. They're both around $50 a year, I believe.
So you say one has to be a member of either the Royal Astronomical Society of Canada or that of the United States counterpart in order
Yes.
to get the certificate, right?
Yeah, of course, there's lots of other benefits to being in those organizations rather than just the certificate. They come with magazine subscriptions and all sorts of stuff like that as well.
Now, you co-wrote the book with another friend of mine, Chris Vaughn, who is well known, and he tells us what to see in the night sky each month, right?
Yes.
Now, why did you bring Chris in to your program, and how did you collaborate during the pandemic?
Yeah. So Chris, I mean, first of all, Chris is a fantastic space journalist, just absolutely, critically acclaimed. The space.com uses him, all the stargazing and stuff, software out there, uses his descriptions of the objects. But one of the reasons I needed Chris is I needed someone who had gone through this list, recently and documented his observations. Because while I was writing this book, for a lot of the time, I was a full-time astrophysics student. And I live downtown in a city, and for a lot of these objects, they appear quite dim in our skies or not at all. And I didn't have the chance to get outside and go into the dark skies, take the time to myself, and sort of reconnect with the more challenging Messier objects. And so that's why I called Chris, because he had actually gone through that a lot more recently. And just because of his skills as a space journalist to sort of, so when we both put our minds together on this, I think we came up with a really spectacular project or product.
Great. Now, is there any tips and tricks to make the process of viewing the objects easier?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the easiest way, or the least stressful way, is just to take your time. Take it one season at a time. Go observing, on new moon weekends. So that's when, you're going to have a night where the moon is not going to come up. Keep an eye on the weather and make sure you have the right gear for the job. So a telescope with sufficient aperture, a nice Plössl eyepiece, dress warm, all the usual stuff.
What type of telescope you recommend?
Yeah, so in the book, we recommend a basic Dobsonian, and there's a couple ways you can do this though. There's a certificate that for people that use go-to capability. So if you've got a fancy go-to telescope, you can really progress through the list quite quickly because you're not spending any time searching for the targets. But there's a difference on the certificate for those that find the targets without the help of a computer, for those just using the star maps that are included in the book. So I guess there's a higher level of prestige for those that are finding the targets without the help of a computer. And so in that case, we recommend a Dobsonian telescope for the job. And that's one of those Newtonian telescopes with at least 6 or 8 inches of aperture, and they're mounted on a Lazy Susan. So they're really effortlessly to point. Combine that with a red dot or bullseye finder scope, and that is probably the easiest way to go through the list without the aid of a computerized telescope.
Great. What is your favorite target when you go out at night?
Oh my gosh, I have so many favorites. So right now is the winter sky. So the target you would look at first on a night like tonight would be M42. I know we're going into spring, but it's still, the winter targets are still high
What's
in the sky.
M42? Again,
Sorry,
we have
yes,
a mixture.
M42.
We have a mixture of people, experienced astrophotographers, astronomers, and we have beginners. In fact, we have some students here. I specifically invited astronomy students and non-astronomy students.
Yeah, let me put this in front of the camera. M42 is the Great Nebula in Orion. So it is the brightest nebula in the northern hemisphere sky. And yeah, it's just fantastic. So you can even see this nebula with binoculars. It looks great. Any size telescope you have will show this nebula. Yeah, and so it's right below. If you see the 3 stars that make up Orion's belt,
One leading with that column leading down to Sirius, which is the brightest
exactly.
star in the sky, right?
Yeah.
And then north of that would be what?
There's a bright star called Betelgeuse, yeah, and then south of that you have
South
a
of that,
bright
good.
star called Rigel, and then sort of southeast you have that really bright star that is the cause for many UFO sightings. That's Sirius.
So it would be fair to say that Orion the Hunter is your favorite target.
Yeah, the nebula inside Orion is my favorite target. Yeah.
Oh,
A more challenging target that is another one of my favorites. I call it Winter Albireo. So if you know anything about Albireo, it's a double star that's popular in the summer sky. So you basically have a gold star and a blue star, and I believe they're gravitationally bound together. So you point a telescope at them and you can really see these 2 beautiful stars, one being gold and one being blue. Absolutely fantastic, but that's in the summer. There's another pair just like that, and they're super close together, a bright blue star and a bright gold star. And they're, if you can picture the constellation Canis Major, it's a dog.
the dog.
Right off the
dog.
dog's, yeah, the lower, if you form a triangle with the 2 stars in the dog's back, you can find another sort of Albireo, gold star and blue star together. That's probably my second favorite target at this time of the year. That's not one of the 110 targets in the book specifically, although we do talk about it when you're in the area.
Now, what should folks observe after they have completed the Messier list? Your advice, of course.
Yeah, so after you've completed the Messier list and you're still looking for other ideas, or maybe you've got your certificate and you're looking at another program, you could go on the Royal Astronomical Society of Canada's website, and they have sort of the next program. So they have one that's double stars, which I believe is 110 double stars. And then they have one called the Finest NGCs. So NGC stands for New General Catalog, and that's a list of about 7,000 targets. But what the Astronomical Society of Canada has done is they picked the best 110, and you can go and do this other list of 110, and you can get a certificate for that as well.
Can I admit something? You just taught me something.
What's that?
I looked, I said, what's NGC? When we describe we see Messier this, Messier that, NGC this, NGC that. You just taught me what it means. That NG, New General Catalog?
Yeah.
Great. Now, where can people find your book?
Yeah, so this book is primarily sold on Amazon, but of course you can go into any bookstore and you can order it from there and they'll bring it in for you. You can also, if you're a member of the Royal Astronomical Society of Canada, I believe you can order it on their website as well. But the easiest place, and the place that gives me the biggest royalty, is Amazon. It's just how it works, because this book is actually professionally self-published. So I published it with a publishing company that I own. And so that way,
you sort of revenue.
Yeah, it's higher revenue. So most of the books I actually go through Formac, which was a mainstream publishing company, but this one I chose to do myself.
Okay, yeah. And you have a website, John?
Yeah. So my website is learntostargaze.com. But if people are looking for me, the place where I'm most responsive is YouTube. So just go to any one of my videos, leave a comment and I will answer you.
Great,
Yeah.
great.
And that's Learn to Stargate, the YouTube channel Learn to Stargate. So I posted a really fun video today where I talked to myself 10 years ago. It's kind of funny.
You know, you must, I don't know, are you a mind reader? Because my next question was, what would you have done different today that you'd have done years ago when you were younger? When you
Yeah,
said,
so the video I posted today has 10 things that I would do differently. I don't know. Let's see if I can remember some of them. I think one, and the most important one, would be to leave all my electronics at home. You know, no cell phones, no computers, no nothing like that. Just bring your guidebook and a red flashlight. So that'd be number one. Number two is to leave all but one eyepiece at home. So only use my lowest powered eyepiece. So right now I basically have one eyepiece that I use most of the time, and it's a 20 millimeter eyepiece. Now this one I'm showing on screen is a big one for my big telescope. But a 20 millimeter Plössl, is a type of eyepiece. Here's one here. And they're not very expensive. This one's about $40 and they offer just beautiful views. So this is a 25 millimeter Plössl by Orion that just came with one of my telescopes. And I wish I had just keep things simple would probably be the advice there. Yeah, so those are two things right away.
obviously, John, you're a very, very busy man. I can see, I know, I follow you on Facebook and I follow your astronomy career. My question, what next for John Reed? What's your next
Oh,
project?
yeah. So I've got two big projects that I'm working on. The first is a book that's simply called Learn to Stargaze. And it's a
Learn
no telescopes
stargaze.
required. Yep, Learn to
Wow.
Stargaze. No telescope required. But if you see all the targets, you still get a certificate from the Royal Astronomical Society of Canada. So it would be the Explore the Universe certificate, which is cool. The neat thing about this, you don't have to be a member. If you go through the book and see
That's
the
what I
target,
like, yeah.
yeah,
Because
actually, you only have to see about a quarter of the targets in this book. And there's a checkbox on each page, and you'll get the certificate from the Royal Astronomical Society of Canada, and you do not have to be a member. So look out for that.
and when
And
will that come out?
that'll hopefully be out by this summer. The book is done. We're waiting on 10 more illustrations from the artist. And then just deciding which publisher to go through. Yeah.
And do you promise me, John, that you will come back when that book is out to talk about the book?
I absolutely promise. I would love to talk to you. This has been great, Maurice.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I know you're a very, very busy man, and pinning you down for a quick interview has been well, I wouldn't say a challenge because you were pretty good, right? So thanks for stopping by.
Absolutely, Maurice. I try to be accessible to everyone.
Okay, my guest has been Mr. John Reed, an astrophysicist, an amateur astronomer, and for our purposes here, an astronomy author with extremely nice book if you are into telescopes and trying to see. And I should ask him this question before he goes. Binoculars, John, right? What size
Yeah.
binoculars you recommend for people to see those deep sky objects?
So again, I like to keep it simple. I used to have a pair of really powerful ones, but now I prefer my 7x50s. Keep it simple.
7x50s, and they can still see the messier objects.
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay, well, thank you very much again, and have a great evening.
Thank you. You too, Maurice.
Take,
Take care.
yeah, yeah, yeah.